It's good to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Updates. We are a show where I update you on my progress and recent changes for the decks in my main box and my test box, as always, on my route to outbrew Magic. Channel, please like and comment and subscribe to the channel if you guys enjoy this content. I'd love to see you guys interacting. And I love everything that y'all have to say in the comment section below. But today, we're talking about a deck that not only spawned a love for a new iteration of an X deck that I loved previous, but was my foray into 40k as well. We're talking about Magus, Lucea, Kane from the Temur Tyranids deck that was put out during the 40k decks. This is a deck I really love because I had been running a Zexara, a Sultai Hydras deck for a time before it, but it just never completely itched what I wanted. I saw this, it was in Temur, a color combination I truly love, and it was an excuse for me to take apart my Mirror deck, which surprisingly no one ever loved seeing. No, I'm just kidding. But I love this deck. It's a ton of fun unless we play all the Hydras and the X spells I really want to play, mixing with all the cool new Tyranids, as well as some other things. But Magus is a 4-mana 1/1 human Tyranid wizard that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a counter onto our creature, and you can tap it for double colorless. When you next cast a spell with X in its mana cost, or activate an ability with X in its mana cost, to copy that ability, spell or ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. So the really important way that we're going to play this deck is we're going to take these Tyranids and these Hydras and these X spells with X in the cost, and we're going to get a copy of them for every time that we tap Magus. We do have some ways to kind of untap shenanigans Magus, but mainly find these Tyranids and these big Hydras, get an extra copy of them, and just get stuck in and end the game. Well, let's get into the players, right? The cards of the deck we really love. We have a lot of the Tyranids from the actual deck itself. All have the Ravenous ability. When this creature ETBs with, if it ETBs with 5 or more +++ encounters on it, you draw a card as it enters. This is great because when you're copying them with Magus, you're getting 2 copies of Ravenous and 2 cards. But there's a lot of fun abilities. Aberrant destroys an artifact or enchantment on combat damage to a player. Broodlord comes in and distributes X number of counters to other creatures we control. Genesis Hydra, the first of our Hydras I want to talk about, is one I really like because it comes in, you reveal the top X, and you can put a non-land permanent from among them with mana value X or less from them onto the battlefield. This is great because depending on how big the X is, we can get into things like Rhythm of the Wild or some of our combat enchantments or things like that, get them down, and then that way when Genesis Hydra comes in, it can already be getting the value from that. If we hit something like Temur Ascendancy or Garruk's Uprising, we're going to draw off of the Genesis Hydra when it comes in. Otherwise, it just comes in as, of course, the usual Hydra 0/0 with X counters on it. We're trying out the new Goldsbane Hydra. It makes absolutely all the sense in the world, especially since it has taste stapled onto it. We can make multiple copies of it, and then when it dies, of course, we get the treasures. Hydrate Krasis is one of my favorite Hydras in the deck. Gain half X life and draw half X cards. You won't get it on the copy because it's a cast trigger, but you'll still get 2 of them with Magus or more, depending on how many times you tap in. Moloch's one of my favorites. Comes in and it fights up to 1 target creature. If that creature would die, you exile it instead. Great way to fight and get something out of the way, especially if it's not someone's commander. Rampaging Yaguai from the Fallout set. When it comes in, you can destroy any number of target artifacts or enchantments with total mana value X or less. This is really a way for us to just start decimating our opponents' artifacts and enchantments if we're worried about them. Tyrant Guard can sack itself to give all creatures we control with counters on them hexproof and indestructible. What a great way to have a little heroic intervention right on a creature, considering almost every single one of our creatures is going to come in with a counter on it. And if it doesn't, remember Magus can give one out every combat step. Voracious Hydra can come in and fight, or you can double the number of counters on it. I love having these creatures that can come in and fight because it means we can potentially remove a creature at the same time as us casting. In a recent game with Magus, I got to copy both Moloch and Voracious Hydra twice, so 3 of them total. All of them got to come in and fight and just wreak havoc onto a board. Zoanthrope comes in and deals X damage to any target, which is really great. It does have flying as well. And then getting into a couple X spells, Awaken the Woods can really ramp us, get us a bunch of these 1/1s that can tap for mana. And then Crackle with Power can just go deep, dealing a bunch of damage to our opponents depending on how much mana we have ready to go. We're also playing things like Jai's Immolating Inferno and Comet Storm, again, just these big damage spells. So if we can copy them multiple times, could potentially deal lethal damage in one swing. And then Unbound Flourishing is one of those enchantments that just keeps the deck together. Whenever you cast a permanent spell with a mana cost containing X, double the value of X. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery or activate an ability, if that spell's mana cost, or activation cost has X, copy it. So Unbound Flourishing, when we're using it with Magus, will only double. If we think about it, should actually double the original and the copy. And then if we're playing for an instant sorcery, we just get another one, which is great as well. Unbound Flourishing works really well with Magus, and a card we want to see. But the deck cares a lot about counters, right? We're putting counters on all these Hydras, we're putting counters on all these Tyranids, so we want to talk about it. Vorinclex is an all-star in the deck, doubling up the amount of counters we put on ours and having the amount of counters to go on our opponents. This has saved me in a couple matchups with other counters decks to really help slow them down. Winged Hive Tyrant gives other creatures with counters on them flying and haste, meaning those big Hydras come in with flying and haste and able to brutalize our opponents. We see the combination of Wave Goodbye and Ripples of Potential from that Merfolk Commander deck. Wave Goodbye bouncing every creature back to hand that doesn't have a counter on it, and Ripples of Potential being a way to protect our board, phase them out, and protect them from a board wipe or a mass bounce. Repulsive Mutation is one that I'm going to try out this time around. Put counters on a target creature and then counter up to one target spell unless its controller pays mana value equal to the greatest power among creatures control. Really cool about the mutation is this could just be a 2-mana counter spell if you have a really massive creature, or you can put a couple counters on it and make it even better. The Ozolith will accumulate the counters from the creatures we have that are leaving, and then can be used to be put on a really big creature and swing through one of our opponents. Doubling Season will give us double the +1/+1 counters on a creature, but it will not double when we copy so when we copy a spell, typically you make a token copy of it, but it's not considered to be making a token. You're just representing the copy of the spell as a token. So Doubling Season will not give us an extra, copy of Moloch when we copy it, but that's okay. We still get a ton of value out of it by doubling the amount of counters. Simic Ascendancy is a way to win the game. Every time counters are put on a permanent we control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if we have 20 more counters on it, we can win the game. Uncivil Unrest is a card that's really great. It gives our non-token creatures Riot, +1/+1 counter or haste when they come in. And then whatever creature we control with a +1/+1 counter would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead, which just make our creatures with counters hit really, really hard. Well, we'll talk about the combo that I feel like if you've played Magus or if you looked into Magus that everyone talks about. That's the Red Terror and OB1. OB1 itself is a great card in the deck. Whenever we put one or more counters on a permanent or player, OB1 deals with that much damage to target opponent, creature opponent controls, or planeswalker opponent controls. It means every time we're casting one of these X spells and putting counters on an X spell creature, OB1 will deal out damage, but it pairs really well with the Red Terror, which says whenever a red source you control deals damage to one or more permanents or players, put a counter on the Red Terror. What this will do is cause a loop where you put the counter on Red Terror, it's going to ping a damage to probably an opponent of your choice to make the game go the quickest. And then that will trigger Red Terror again. Red Terror will do the damage, triggering OB1. OB1 will put the counter on... OB1 will do the damage, which will trigger Red Terror to put the counter on itself again, and that loop will knock all your opponents out of the game. Pretty cool, cheeky 2-card combo, especially considering OB1's so good with the rest of the deck. Garruk's Uprising to give all of our creatures trample and get some card draw. When they come in, Rhythm of the Wild can give our non-token creatures haste, potentially, or another counter. And then Warstorm Surge, whenever a creature comes in, deal damage equal to its power to any target. It's going to help get some good damage in on our opponents. But let's start with the updates we did this time around. I didn't have a Crack with Power in the deck. I was focusing a lot more on creatures with X's in their spells. And I realized over playing a lot of games that there were scenarios where I could have dumped 11 mana into Crack with Power, X is 3 for each of them, giving me 15 damage to up to 3 targets. And I could have just copied that once or twice and ended a game outright, rather than playing a 9-mana Hydra. But Goldvein, of course, came out in Thunder Junction, and it having haste is a slam dunk. I added Mistcutter Hydra because it has haste, and I noticed more often than not, I'd have the combat pieces, but I wouldn't have anything to give my creatures haste. So I wanted to add another Hydra that would just have haste on it naturally. Astral Cornucopia just makes a ton of sense. We can put X as much as we can into each of them, and then with Magus we can copy it, getting us multiple Astral Cornucopias just makes a ton of sense. Warstorm Surge wasn't in the deck before because I was trying out some other cards, so it very happily came in. And then Kiora and a couple other small things came in as ways to untap Magus to be able to tap her again. Previously I was using things like Pemin's Aura, which I'm not opposed to going back to. I just wanted to try out some different things, mainly because Kiora draws me a card every time a creature with power 4 or greater comes in, and that's a lot of my Hydras. So I kind of wanted to see what the difference would be over the course of the next few games. But like I say all the time on the regular show, and I say all the time, probably to the point that I'm becoming a broken record, no deck has ever done. And there's a couple cards I wanted to consider as we move forward into testing. One that probably should be in there already, and the other two that just look kind of fun. Twinning Staff should probably be in this deck already. If you copy a spell one or more times, copy an additional time, it makes sense, right? But the problem that I find in most of these decks is how many slots in the deck do you really truly have, or what do you really want to take out? Maybe it means taking out a spell I don't like as much and getting the Twinning Staff in. We'll think about it right as we test some more and as we do some more. The other two, Hell to Pay is a spell I really love. This is a spell that was a slam dunk in my Ovika deck more than anything else. But I love the look of that. And then Doppelgang feels like it makes sense. The cool part is it doesn't have to be your target permanence. It can be anything. Meaning I could copy my opponent's mana rocks. I can copy a lot of things. And I can get it copied. Remember, when you copy, you can choose new targets. So Doppelgang could be a ton of fun. The only downside to Doppelgang, of course, is I don't really want to copy my own Hydras because then they're not going to come in with any counters. But I feel like there could be room for Doppelgang to be pretty good. But let's get into our playtesting. Keeping a 2-lander with a Growth Spiral and a Jeska's Will seems pretty darn good. We'll get that Steam Vents in tap. Turn 1, not really much we can do here. On turn 2, we have two options. We can Growth Spiral or we can Curious Follower. This is a way for us to untap Magus. I kind of like the idea of just going for this Growth Spiral. I kind of have no reason not to. I mean, I'd like to get the ramp out of the way, so draw a card and we can put our land from our hand on the battlefield. We'll just get that Syndicate down. So this will be a turn 3 Magus, which is what we really want to do because we need Magus to be tapping as soon as possible. Now, there is the risk that somebody on turn 3 has removal for Magus, but it's, of course, start of our combat. We're going to put a counter on her. She's the only target we have. And we'll pass it back around. So with 5 mana and 2 from Magus, we could put 6 into Mistcutter Hydra if we wanted to and get 2 copies of them. We could Jeska's Will, getting to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, to put 9 into Mistcutter Hydra if we wanted to. We could get the Curious Follower down and just go, and go. If I get the Curious Follower down and I add the 2 mana, I could still go 7 into Mistcutter Hydra by doing the Jeska's Will. That could be an option as well. We could adapt. We have a great target for Yogui at the moment, right? Just with what we have. But I think I would do that route. Get the follower down. Use these 2 as my thought. Then tap her for the 2 colorless and the red here. Making 7 red because somebody in our opponent's going to have that. And then 8, 9 from the 2 lands we have there for Mistcutter Hydra. One's going to come in with 8 counters, and then we're going to get a copy of it with 8 counters. And then now we have 2 hasty 8/8s with protection from blue. No trample, but hey, now they're hasty 8/8s on turn 4 that are going to be able to slam into our opponents. And now we can set up untapping Magus next turn. Start of combat, I would probably I'd put a counter on Kiora just in case we get into Curious Follower, just in case we get into any abilities that care about counters. Now we draw Shadow on the Warp, which is a great card. Again, if we have something to destroy, I'd go with Yogui. Otherwise, I really like the Old One-Eye here. It comes in with a 5/5, and let's just get trample on everything. Let's see, if we go 3 here for Shadow on the Warp, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we would actually have enough for Shadow on the Warp and Old One-Eye. And remember, Old One-Eye comes in and makes that 5/5 Tyranids. Sorry, I didn't mean to draw a card. But now these guys have trample. They can run in, put a counter on that old one eye, just so that way it's protected by any future abilities that care about it. Slam those 8/8s in now with trample. Now we're getting there, and unfortunately we did see that Goldbane Hydra. But I think I would be kind of interested in Gias. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana because of being able to tap Magus twice. That allows us to get a Gias 3 times. So 7 damage up to 3 targets, and we get that 3 times, so effectively 21 damage this turn to each opponent. And I feel like we're darn close to just knocking people out right now. That just goes to show you that with the right sequencing and the right draws, what Magus can do. But let's go one more. 2-lander with Farseek and Salvala feels like a great start. We're going to be able to get that mana down. We'll get the Frontier Buviak in there. Let's do this and get that Farseek going. We'll go get our Tri-land, of course. Make sure we get it down and get it used. This will always also make sure that we can play Selvala next turn if that's what we want to do. I kind of like the of playing cracking this Misty Rainforest now rather than later, just to make sure that next turn we have access to that. I think I'm going to go grab a Steam. Well, I say we have access to everything, right? Let's go get a... where's my breeding pool? Let's go get that one. Close and shuffle. That we play the Selvala, and then we, crack that so that comes in tap. We have that available for next turn. So here we can get our land down. Selvala could tap for 2. I'd give us 6 mana total. Slam. I think either way we're probably just casting Magus here, right? And I'll put the counter on Selvala just so that way we have a 3 power creature instead of 2 for the purpose of her ability. Not too much sexy on this turn, but we have a way to set up an X spell next turn, and I think we're on the right path. Scalding Tarn, we'll crack it. I guess there is the argument for us shocking in a Shockland here, but I don't really think we need to. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with Magus, and 10 with Selvala. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9 with Selvala. That would be an 8 into Termagant Swarm. I think I'm okay with that. Conversely, we could put into the Garruk's Uprising this turn. No, I think I'm okay with that coming in tap. We would tap everything for 8 for Termagant Swarm. Get a copy of it, of course, because of Magus's ability. Both of them coming in with 8 counters on them, and that will draw us 2 cards because of the Ravenous. This is also going to draw us another card because of Selvala, because they are the highest power on the battlefield, I'm sure, at this point. Cracked us into a Awaken the Woods. Growth Spiral is great. Inspiring Call. Jaya's next turn could be pretty big. 5, 13, 15. Jaya's for 13 is probably lethal. Next turn on the board, that's 39 damage, or 26 damage total. With Magus, if we can find another fun way to do it, that would be brutal. But again, now we're just to the point where next turn we could go big with that. If we find a Hydra, we can do something else. I think you can kind of see the play line from here as far as what the idea is. But let me know, what do you think of Temur Tyranids / X-Spells down in the comments below. This is a deck I really love. I've had a ton of fun playing it. I've had a ton of fun iterating it, making it better, and it's a deck I love coming back to. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.